All right, everyone, welcome back to The Deep Dive. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more insightful deep dives into the topics that matter. Today, we're tackling a story that's, well, a total roller coaster, so buckle up. We're talking comedy, politics, social media, and a whole lot of controversy. So get this. Comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, you know the guy, famous for those absolutely brutal roasts, decided to try his hand at roasting at a Donald Trump rally at Madison Square Garden. And you can probably guess it didn't exactly go over well.
Yeah, what's interesting here is the clash of comedic styles and the expectations of the audience, right? Hinchcliffe's known for this really edgy, no-holds-barred humor, while a political rally is, well, a very different beast.
Totally. So picture this. Hinchcliffe is up on stage at this rally and drops this joke about Puerto Rico being a floating island of garbage. I mean, even for a roast, that's, yeah, crossing a line.
Yeah, and the reaction was swift. And it wasn't just the public who was outraged. Hinchcliffe's fellow comedians, people who understand the art of roasting better than anyone, really went after him on social media.
Oh, they did not hold back. Comedians like Guy Branum and Alice Wetterland just called him out hard. Wetterland even compared him to microwaved Pete Davidson, which honestly is one of the most brutal burns I've ever heard.
It's a perfect example of how social media can amplify both praise and criticism. It's like this virtual comedy club where everyone's watching and waiting for the next punchline, only this time, Hinchcliffe was the punchline.
Yeah, it makes you think, can a comedian who's known for roasting celebrities successfully transition to roasting at a political rally? I mean, think about it. The audiences are totally different.
Yeah, one's expecting to be entertained, and the other,
Not so much.
no. And there's a huge difference between edgy humor and just punching down. Especially in a political setting, the stakes are a lot higher. The line between a joke and a harmful statement can blur really quickly.
And let's be real. For some Trump supporters, calling Puerto Rico a garbage heap might not even be a joke. It's like their reality just doesn't line up with the setup for a traditional roast at all.
Right. It's like he showed up at a chess match expecting a boxing ring. Humor relies on that shared understanding between the comedian and the audience, and when that's missing, things can go south really fast.
So we've got Hinchcliffe bombing on stage, fellow comedians roasting him online. It's a total mess. But then there's this weird twist. He retweets a clip of another comedian who had a killer set that same night, same rally. What do you make of that?
It's hard to say what Hinchcliffe's intentions were there. Was he trying to, deflect the criticism? Or was he genuinely impressed by the other comedian's performance? I don't know. It speaks to the complex dynamics of the comedy world where competition and camaraderie often go hand in hand.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to say, hey, look, I still appreciate good comedy. But at the same time, it feels a little tone deaf considering the backlash he was facing.
It also raises questions about the comedian's responsibility to their audience, doesn't it? Even in the world of roasts, there are lines that shouldn't be crossed. And when those lines are crossed, there are consequences.
And those consequences can be amplified tenfold in the age of social media. So we have this perfect storm brewing, a comedian known for pushing boundaries, a politically charged setting, and a joke that backfired spectacularly.
Yeah, it's a fascinating case study in the power of comedy, the importance of context, and the potential pitfalls of performing for an audience that doesn't share your sense of humor.
Yeah, it really makes you think about that line, what's acceptable, what's not in comedy. I mean, Hinchcliffe, he's known for his edgy style, but even his fellow comedians were like, whoa, too far.
Yeah, it's like there's this unwritten code amongst comedians, right? Like they can roast each other mercilessly, but there are these lines you don't cross.
Exactly. And when someone breaks that code, the community is quick to call them out. And in this case, it wasn't just like a few comedians voicing their disapproval. This was like a chorus of voices being like, hey, this isn't okay. And those voices, those were some heavy hitters in the comedy world. It wasn't just random Twitter trolls. We're talking people like Guy Branum, called The Rally, get this, Nuremberg, and Sean O'Connor, called Hinchcliffe the worst comedian in the world. I mean, these are people whose opinions actually carry weight.
Right, and their criticisms highlight an important point, right? There's a difference between being edgy and punching down. Edgy humor pushes boundaries, challenges norms, but it does it in a way that's clever, insightful. Punching down is just making fun of people who are already marginalized or disadvantaged.
So in this case, Hinchcliffe's joke about Puerto Rico, it wasn't just insensitive, it was punching down at a community that's already been through so much. And that's where the real harm is.
Exactly. It's not just about the words themselves, it's the power dynamics at play. Hinchcliffe, he's a successful comedian, has this platform. His voice carries weight. When he uses that platform to make light of a group that's struggling, it reinforces those negative stereotypes, perpetuates harm.
And that's why the reaction from his fellow comedians was so swift and strong. They recognized, this wasn't just a comedian telling a bad joke. This was a comedian using his platform in a way that was just harmful, irresponsible.
Yeah, and it speaks to the larger conversation about the role of comedy in society, doesn't it? Comedy can be such a powerful tool, social commentary, challenging norms, making us laugh at ourselves. But it can also be used to reinforce those negative stereotypes and silence marginalized voices.
So it's not just about Hinchcliffe and this one bad joke. It's about the responsibility comedians have to use their platform ethically and thoughtfully.
Exactly. It's recognizing words have power, especially when they're spoken by someone with a large audience. A joke might seem harmless in one context, but incredibly hurtful in another.
And this brings us back to that Hinchcliffe retweet
Yeah.
of the other comedian's set. Some people see it as trying to deflect criticism. Others see it as a genuine, gesture of respect. But regardless of his intentions, it raises an interesting question. Can a comedian who's crossed a line, can they redeem themselves?
That's a tough one. I think it depends on the individual comedian and the nature of the transgression. In some cases, maybe a sincere apology, a commitment to doing better, that might be enough. But in other cases, that damage might be too great to repair.
Yeah, and in the age of social media, where everything's amplified, scrutinized, it's even harder to come back from a misstep. The internet never forgets, as they say.
True, true. But it's also important to remember people can change and grow, right? If a comedian is willing to acknowledge their mistakes, learn from them, make a genuine effort to do better, I think there's always a chance for redemption.
So what do you think, can Hinchcliffe recover from this? Can he regain the trust of his audience, his fellow comedians? I mean, it's a question only time will answer.
Yeah, but one thing's for sure, this incident sparked an important conversation about the boundaries of comedy, the responsibility of comedians, and the power of social media. And those are conversations we need to keep having.
Yeah, it's a wild world out there for comedians these days, right? One wrong joke and feels like the whole internet is coming for you.
Yeah, it's true. And in Hinchcliffe's case, it wasn't just the internet, it was his own peers.
Right, holding him accountable. Which brings us to the most intriguing part of this whole thing. After getting slammed online, he retweets this clip of another comedian who just killed it at the same Trump rally. What was he thinking? Trying to change the subject? Or was there something more to it?
It's hard to say for sure, but it definitely adds another layer to this already pretty complex story. I mean, some might see it as a subtle attempt at damage control, like he's trying to say, hey, look, I still appreciate good comedy, even if mine didn't land.
Right, I'm not a total monster. I can recognize talent when I see it. But then again, maybe he was just genuinely impressed.
Yeah, maybe it's possible. It speaks to that competitive yet supportive nature of the comedy world. These comedians are always pushing each other, trying to outdo one another, but there's also this sense of camaraderie there. They understand the pressures, the challenges of the craft.
So where does this leave Hinchcliffe? Can he bounce back from this?
That remains to be seen. But one thing's clear. This incident ignited this much-needed conversation about the boundaries of humor, the responsibility that comedians have, and the power of social media.
It's a conversation that extends way beyond this one comedian and this one joke. It forces us to confront how humor can be used to both unite and divide.
Yeah, and it really underscores how important it is to be mindful of our words and actions, especially when you have a platform, an audience. A joke that might seem harmless to one person could be deeply offensive to another.
It's something we all need to be aware of, not just comedians.
Absolutely. I think this whole situation is a reminder that words have power and that we all have a responsibility to use them wisely.
So there you have it, folks. One comedian, one ill-advised joke, and a whole lot of fallout. It's a story that makes you think, laugh, and maybe even cringe a little.
It's a story that reminds us that comedy can be a powerful force, for better or worse. And it's a story that I think will continue to be debated, discussed for years to come.
And that's our deep dive for today. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and let us know your thoughts on this whole Hinchcliffe situation down in the comments below. We want to hear from you.